All right, welcome to the JDC West 2021 Human Resources Case Presentation sponsored by Raymond James. Thank you to our judges, Maurice Pellerin, Senior Manager Human Resources at Raymond James, Richard Hansen, Human Resources Manager at Canada Revenue Agency, Satvir Jatana, Vice President Employee and Community Engagement at Manitoba Public Insurance, Andrea Linger, Manager Practice Management at Raymond James, Radhi Desai, Human Resources Specialist at Raymond James. Competitors, you will have a maximum of 20 minutes to present. Immediately following the presentation, judges will have a total of 5 minutes to ask the presenters questions. I am our academic moderator. I will be timekeeping and controlling the overall flow of the presentation format. Time intervals will be noted in the Zoom chat by myself beginning at the 10-minute mark. Following the presentation, I will facilitate the question and answer period. Judges will indicate their intent to ask a question by using the hand raised function, which I will then call on them to indicate the next question. No questions or comments will be permitted from the audience at any time. The audience is also prohibited from communicating to the presenters in any forum, including Zoom or via other mediums during the presentation or question period. If you are an observer, please ensure your camera is off and microphone is muted. Once the question period is complete, I'll ask everyone to leave the Zoom meeting. Competitors, you may now begin when you're ready.
Oh no, that customer's getting away with a purse.
Catch me if you can.
As we see here, a shoplifter is getting away from the store with a new purse, and this security guard must go on the chase. Now, this is probably not the first time that the store has had to deal with a shoplifter stealing something from their store. This situation may probably happen again in the future without the proper systems in place, such as the training and the right motivation. And that is exactly what we're seeing here at Citywide Security Services. Right now, you're at a risk at losing an important customer, and this represents your shoplifter. And without the right systems in place, you will see this situation happening again in your loss of customer. And that is why today we ask, how can CWS sustainably staff a quality workforce of security guards? Our key asks are, how can CWO fill their short-term vacancies? How can they improve the security guards' quality of service? And how can CWS make the job more attractive in order to increase retention? With our recommendations today, we hope to reach our goal to set up CWS to compete in the security industry as a quality service provider. Now let's look back at what we have with CWS. We see that the future can be very bright. Current state, you have a low quality workforce with poor client relationships, and you're scrambling to fulfill services. And the future state we see as quality service offering. You want to have a growth in your client base and to be an attractive place to work. And we see this is very urgent for your company, because if you don't have a high quality workforce, you cannot support the service offerings that you want to offer. And there's a few barriers, such as the cutoff threats from your current clients, the current pandemic, and the scheduling difficulties that we're currently seeing. That leads us to our first issue, that CWS urgently needs to staff your quality guards. Currently, you only have 3 months to fulfill these vacancies, and your clients have you on a short leash. CWS has a short time frame to staff these quality guards. This is very urgent, these 3 months, and you are at the risk of losing these core clients and decreasing the revenue. So this is the short-term issue that we must address right now. So how can CWS fill their short-term vacancies? Next, we see that there are many client complaints. In the exit interviews that the HR consulting firm done, they saw that there's a standout in that your former employees said that there's not adequate training. And most of the training is not formal, is actually online. And if guards are not performing to CWX's expectations without the proper training, there will be increasing grievances. Right now, these guards are not feeling prepared. And as a matter of fact, moving forward, there will be a loss of clients. So that's why we asked, how can CWS improve security guards' quality of service? That leads us to our last issue that we've outlined, is that CWS is experiencing high turnover with their guards. We see that there's job security and scheduling complaints from your employees, and also you charge a high bill rate. however, offer poor quality service. And this is an unattractive service offering for your clients. As well, the guards, they want more hours, but many times these are given last minute. Therefore, these guards are able to come in and fill these vacancies, even though they want to be at work. As an impact, they're forced into the cycle of low quality hires for vacancies. And therefore, this will lead to a lack of company growth as your service offering is just not attractive against your competitors. That's why we ask, how can CWS make the job more attractive in order to increase retention? To quickly summarize the issues we've outlined today, we have the staffing urgency, the lack of training, and the poor employee retention. And these are why we ask these key questions today.
Let's take a look at how we can address each of those questions. So when we take a look at our recommendations overview for today, we split it up into arriving on time, which involves engaging an agency for short-term hiring, fastening the security belt, which involves training your people to be the best they can be on the job, and lastly, securing the hours, making sure that there is always a security guard up for the job and that they are fulfilling the schedule that they wish to accomplish. So with the first recommendation, we took a look at the issue moving forward as asking the question, how can you fulfill your short-term vacancies? Now, we took a look at the different alternatives that we might use to pursue this. But first, I want to go over the criteria that we outlined. Ultimately, we want to ensure that the client is satisfied with the people that you send to these sites, that you're able to fill these spots quickly and conveniently, and lastly, that it doesn't cost an arm and a leg to implement. So when we look at training your existing guards to fulfill these 20 vacancies, the biggest barrier we see here is client satisfaction. They've already worked with a lot of your guards and have expressed that they aren't very happy with some of the performance and service. So we don't see this as a viable option. We also take a look at hiring back your operations coordinator, but we understand that you'll still have to onboard the coordinator back, and there's not too much time for you to do that right now. And so we didn't see this as a very efficient option, which leads us to the option that we chose to go with, engaging an agency. It allows you to fulfill your client's needs with having quality candidates. It allows you to do it quickly because they promise to do it within the next 30 days. And the cost is relatively on par with what you're looking for. So that is ultimately the option that we went for. And moving forward, we see that the overall solution that we have for this first recommendation is to engage with the agency. And on the following slide, we will see that engaging an agency in the short term is the solution, and you can hire back your operations coordinator in the long term. What this will enable you to do is meet quality and quantity needs for your clients quickly, but also developing your in-house capabilities in the future. And the overall impact of this recommendation is to fill those vacancies efficiently with the best people possible and meet your client demands.
So what does it take for a recommendation like this to come to life? We first need to look at where we're going to hire these people. And as mentioned, we do have a preferred recruitment agency, and therefore we do suggest reaching out to them because therefore you have better connections and it's easier to communicate your needs and the things that you're looking for in your candidates. The next thing from there is to determine the kind of qualities that you seek in a new candidate. This may look different from what you already have in terms of your list of requirements, and we want to make sure that you discuss that and confirm that and communicate that to the agency. So when we move on into executing this recommendation, in terms of what we need to do, we need to set a time frame. And so ideally, all this hiring and this recruitment stage would happen within 6 weeks. And that is because right now you have 3 months of time, but it's also important that you need to train and onboard these employees properly. And we want to make sure that we allocate sufficient time to do that. Next is we look at the minimum requirements. So currently you see roughly 80 employees out of your 120 who actually only meet 2 requirements that you have. So when we look at who we're going to hire, we're going to suggest that you ask that these employees or these new hires have a minimum of 4 of the requirements that you have from your list. And from there, we also suggest that they have more experience in patrol or any security guard related kind of field. So when we look at how to evaluate this recommendation, we're going to suggest that you look at the number of qualified candidates. That way, it would help us to make sure that your recruitment agency that you're partnered with is also delivering. The second thing is client retention. So the number of clients that actually stay after the 3 months, if they're happy with the employees that you have right now, as well as your revenue. Because if you don't address this issue, as mentioned, it is going to cost you $60,000 each month. So after the 3 months of implementing this recommendation, we want to measure if that is actually going to stay, if clients are going to stay, and if they choose to keep up with the same number of projects or actually pull back.
After securing those people that you need for the short term, we move on to looking at how you can train your people. So we ask the question how you can improve your guards' quality of service. And ultimately, the solution that we have for you is providing on-the-job training and create a buddy system to help people understand what the best practices are and also learn from each other and give each other feedback. We also see in the future that there's a potential for a scenario simulation. So what to do in certain types of scenarios that might happen on the job. And why this is really important is being a security guard is more than just understanding the theory. It's knowing what it's like to be in a stressful situation when there are people depending on you, when there are people at risk. And that's why this type of job requires hands-on training that goes beyond the online modules that your company is currently planning for. So we say to please continue on that, but this is to enhance and really build in those on-the-job training pieces that is really necessary for a security guard to deliver the highest quality service that they can provide. And ultimately, the impact of this recommendation is to equip your security guards with the tools and skills that they need to succeed on the job and provide quality service to your clients.
So in terms of the shadowing recommendation, we want to make sure that everyone is matched properly. And so with regards to the matching process, we want to first look at performance so that we can assess the skill level of each employee, matching the most skilled with perhaps the least skilled, so that they have so that employees can complement each other with their skill sets, as well as provide each other support. We will also consider seniority, as that is, they may have preferences, and that will just help with overall engagement. With regards to communication, we want to make sure that we have a top-down approach. Executives will communicate to middle managers will communicate to their subordinates and their teams with regards to how this shadowing is going to work. And ideally, this would be communicated throughout the month, where we would send out emails as well as provide it in the agenda. From there, we also need to provide continuous support through email to address that apprehension if anyone is feeling slightly uncomfortable with the shadowing. With regards to our next part, which is the simulations that Lauren mentioned, it's really important that we have that hands-on training. Fastening the tool belt doesn't mean that you watch somebody fasten their tool belt on their screen. They actually have to try and do it themselves. And that's why we need to provide this support where they can learn to do it hands-on. And so because of COVID, we do recognize that it's not really possible to do that right now. So we recommend that you take the next 9 months or so until September to really plan what these simulations will look like. And these scenarios may look like how to handle physical fights, misappropriation or theft, medical emergencies, identifying suspicious behavior, or how to handle intoxicated people at events. And that is going to be really important because, as we noticed, there have been 11 guards that were physically assaulted, and we want to make sure that we're prepared for that so that we can reduce that turnover for employees. And from there, also communicate through emails as well as meetings. So when we look at how to evaluate this, we want to look at client satisfaction in the long term, whether they're happy with the performance and the quality of our service, as well as the performance evaluation ratings that we will be giving to each employee.
And now for our third recommendation, creating scheduling streams and compensating right. So we asked the question, how could we make your security guards' jobs more attractive to increase retention? So let's take a look first at compensation. We see that right now with the current compensation, employees aren't satisfied. They've expressed that in exit interviews when they've left, and we see that you're actually paying below the industry average. So we don't think that staying with your current average wage rate is the way to go. We looked at the alternative of providing bonuses for less desirable sites, as you've proposed with public sites where people might be afraid of COVID and such. But we don't see this as sustainable because people might buy into it for the short term if they're incentivized by this bonus. But it's difficult to say as things go on how you might be able to sustain this across your organization to make sure there's always a guard for the job. And that's why we have a third alternative for you to pursue, which is matching the industry average. And as we can see, it allows your employees to be satisfied, to feel that they're being rewarded for the hard work that they're putting forth. And it's also sustainable in the sense that when you're looking to hire more people and you show that you're paying the industry wage, it gives them more incentive to choose your firm as opposed to competitors. And so when we move forward, when we take a look at the other parts of this recommendation, we see that not only can you compensate at industry average, we're also recommending that you create scheduling streams. Now, what does this actually mean? Right now, a lot of your guards turn down jobs because they are given really last minute notice and they don't have the ability to make those hours. But we've also seen in the exit interviews that your people want more work. They want job security. They want to make sure that they're working enough hours to provide for themselves and their loved ones. So what we want to propose is a scheduling stream system to enable guards to express their preferences for maybe night shifts, day shifts, or potentially looking at different types of events that they're more comfortable with, as we looked at with the potential for going with public events, and being able to match client needs based on your guards' preferences and which stream they fit into best. And that impact of this recommendation is to provide that job predictability and security to your guards by tailoring their schedules based on their different availabilities and their comfort levels.
So what does securing hours really mean? It means making sure that all of your employees feel heard and that their feelings are felt when they need more flexibility, when they make sure that their schedules are actually manageable for them. And so when we look at who's going to coordinate this transformation, we're looking at the operations coordinator. And from there, they will be involved with communicating to all the CWS security guards to make sure that they address any concerns. So when we go from there, we look at how to separate these streams, and we recommend looking at anchor sites, public sites, and variable. So these will be 3 separate streams that will be separated into day and night options for employees. So if we look at how to execute that, I'll show you an example of what that looks like. So here is a scorecard, and this is for you to distribute to your employees. They can check off their preferences. Do I want to work in the day or do I want to work in the night? Am I more comfortable with having variable types of shifts? Like if there's an off chance that there's a shift that day, I might want to take it. Do I prefer working at public sites or do I have more experience working on anchor sites? So that will really help with the employees and really ensure that they are matched with what they're comfortable with and what really works for their schedules and their lives. So when we look at how to evaluate this, we look at, continuing to determine our shifts, we look at how to prioritize it. So obviously there are going to be some clashes with preferences, so we want to base it off of seniority as well as availability. And from there, we also mentioned that this increase in compensation will help to motivate employees to really give their best combined with this added flexibility. And the communication plan is for us to host a Zoom meeting so that all employees can be aware of this new change so that they can better accommodate and also make sure that it matches up with their life events. And so when we look at how to evaluate this, we are looking at 3 different KPIs: turnover, average tenure, which is how long employees will stay, as well as the number of vacancies. So previously we had a lot of vacancies, but we want to make sure that these vacancies are, the number of vacancies is decreasing with this new scheduling plan. And so if you look now into our timeline,
Yeah, go ahead.
So these are our long-term considerations. We have 3 here, including internal recognition program, career progression track, as well as becoming an industry leader. And what we really see here is there are a lot of considerations in this case, and there are a lot of issues going on, but we want to address the most important here, the most pressing, which is $60,000 each month that you could be losing, as well as your clients and your future prospects of clients who will be willing to work with you. And unless you resolve the issues that we mentioned today, it's going to be really difficult for you to survive in this industry. So as we move on, I'll pass it on to Lauren to talk about financials.
So when we take a look at the financial investment and benefits, what we see is an initial investment of $110,000, which involves the agency recruitment fee and the one-time training, development, and simulations we're taking a look at. But ongoing, you would be bringing back your operations coordinator and also compensating at industry. But what I really want to draw your attention to is the benefits. You're going to see reduced amount in turnover, and this is just a conservative estimate of how much you'll be able to save, and also making sure that you don't lose out on that big revenue piece that is driving your business forward through this uncertain time. And so overall, we see that there will be a big return on investment as you move forward and be able to secure more clients with a higher quality service you'll be able to provide. And so when we take a look at risks and mitigations, we see that there are 3 key risks here. The fact that their workers may not feel safe in working in public sites, senior guards might be hesitant to be mentored by younger coworker, and that the agency might not be able to find enough quality candidates. I want to draw your attention to the second one, because the way we would like to frame this shadowing opportunity is that it's an opportunity for each of them to learn and develop as they've expressed as something that they really want to see in a job.
CWS, with our recommendations today, we want to make sure that you never lose a client ever again. In other words, never let a shoplifter steal from your store ever again. Thank you. And now we open the floor to Q&A.
Thank you, competitors. Judges, you may now begin raising your hands for questions. We'll start with Radhi.
Hi, thank you for your presentation. So you mentioned introducing a buddy system. So for someone who's already feeling who's not getting paid enough, and somebody who's overworked, what's my motivation, as a worker to just help somebody out or just take on that extra work?
Right. So the way that we envision this is more so a job kind of shadowing situation. So it would happen during the shifts that people are on. They would be paired up with someone to shadow, and it would go vice versa. And that would enable them to learn the best practices from each other and evaluate and give feedback to each other. And the way that it would be facilitated is in a controlled way as well. So just to make sure that people don't follow wrong practices, it would be something that they can go over with yourself and the regional managers afterwards. So it's more so on the job than it is taking on additional work.
We'll next hear from Satvir.
Yeah, you reference in your financials the investment and benefits. What is the thought behind reduced turnover of 200? Is there a percentage that you've targeted? I mean, the benefit seems great, just some rationale behind that.
For sure. So reduced turnover we see is 5% of your total employee costs right now. And so we've thought about it in the way that if you're able to reduce at least 5% turnover, you'll be able to save the cost of having to rehire people, having to help people kind of get onboarded, and therefore that's a big cost saving for you.
And the revenues at stake are current revenue. How was that number come up?
That one is from the clients that are demanding that you fill the spots within the next 3 months. So we took a look at your estimate of almost $60,000 a month, scaled up to a year.
The next question will come from Andrea.
Thank you for your presentation. Just a quick question again on the financials. Compensate at industry, I'm assuming that includes all of your current employees as well, that you will be bringing them up to the minimum average?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Next question will come from Richard.
Well, we got lots of financial questions, but I'm going to switch it up a little bit. But related to the increase to the industry standard, beyond that, what would be your recommendations in terms of ways to compensate employees to keep them retained and happy and feeling like they're progressing on a compensation side of the house?
That's a great question. With what we've seen with this situation is that by upping that compensation to the industry standard, at least, we're allowing our employees, we're kind of narrowing down the value that we're bringing with our workforce. Before, our workforce was only expected to bring $13 of value to their job. Now they're expected to bring at least $16. And in terms of being motivated, we've added things such as the training, and these are complaints that we saw in the survey. And we hope that with that, it'll bring more retention in the future.
And for the long-term considerations, we also proposed looking at internal recognition programs, but that's more of a long-term consideration for now.
Next question will come from Andrea.
Hi, can you guys just go back to your timeline, your implementation timeline again, just so I can take a quick peek at that?
Yeah, so from here, what we really want to highlight is that there are key milestones at the 3-month, around 9.5-month mark, as well as in between the 12 months. So here we see that training and deploying these employees to resolve the client issue is our main concern. And then from there, we'll be rolling out the other programs.
Great, thank you.
Judges, do we have any further questions?
Sorry, I'm not putting my hand up. I'm just going to jump in to save time.
Go ahead.
I'm curious in terms of the stars here. What was the meaning of the stars?
The stars are our key milestones. So as you can see with the first star on the left, that's train and deploy. That's for us to really deploy our new employees to our clients who are demanding better service. And then from here, the middle star will be for separating employees into streams, which is another recommendation. So that's a key milestone that we will reach. And the same thing with the buddy system for us to roll out the program with simulation.
Perfect. That does wrap up the time we have for questions. So I thank competitors and judges, thank you for your questions. Competitors, thank you for your presentation. And I now ask that we all exit the Zoom call.
Thank you.
Thank you.